all the members. Yeah, great.
I mean, other people might be able to see the stream, but it's aimed at members.
What, you mean other people that are in the room with them? Maybe we'll see it.
Yeah.
You could watch it through someone's window if there's a member there.
That's one way of looking at it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Bailey. I'm the National Ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Getting a little bit of mic bouncing back on me there. That's okay. I hope that evens itself out. So much so, I really appreciate you all tuning in every night as we go live every single night here. I'm going to take questions as we go, but I want to formally introduce Ross Blainey from the Balvenie as Australia's National Ambassador for the Balvenie. Am I getting the title right, Ross?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's something like that. I mean, you can call me whatever you want, within reason, obviously.
We can call you whatever we like. That's cool.
Yeah. No 4-letter words except Ross, please.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So we're just going live at the moment, having a chat with Ross tonight about his role, a bit about his whiskey journey, a bit about the Balvenie, talk about a few things there. There's actually a special relationship between William Grant & Sons, the parent company for the Balvenie, and the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, which we'll touch on as we go along as well. But thanks again, Ross, for taking the time out of your home schedule to catch up with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm quite happy to come on and have a chat and drink a whiskey. I mean, I would be drinking a whiskey and not having a chat, so this is great. Thanks for having me.
Before I take any questions, I want to ask a question from us, from the society, from myself. One question I'm sure you're asked quite often in your ambassador role and otherwise is, what was your journey into whiskey? How did this all sort of come about for you? Where was this sort of the start for you, the catalyst, if you like?
Sorry, I'll just move my phone out of the way so it doesn't keep vibrating. How did I get into whiskey? Was that, or how did I come across it? Or
yeah, what was the lift-off point for you? How did
it kind of started for me? I think growing up, my parents weren't huge into whiskey. My mum always had a little bit of whiskey in the cupboard for cooking. She'd always have the Bailey nickel jar view. I'd always be sitting in there, and I always remember, you don't see it very often now, I always remember what it looked like. I saw a bottle quite recently. It's quite memorable for me. They didn't drink an awful lot, but when I was a teenager, I think I could admit now that I drank a lot of Jack Daniels when I was almost old enough to drink whiskey, and I was getting into whiskey a little bit, and I loved that. But when I became 18, sorry,
don't say the exact number, but you're close enough.
Oh yeah, it was around there. Just you have a couple of drinks and you see what it's like. And then when I was 18, 19, I started working in pubs, local village, just like not far from where I grew up and where I went to school. So I worked in a pub called the Houston Inn, and then I moved down the road to a place called the Fox and Hounds, and that was where I started getting into whiskey. So we had a few whiskies in the back bar, maybe like 10 or 15, and me and my friend Robin, who worked there with me, we started getting interested in the whiskies, and we'd have a little, a single malt after we finished our shift. We'd sit down with a pint and maybe read the label, or I don't know, have a drink of it and think, oh yeah, that's nice. We weren't paying for it at that time, so we were quite happy to be drinking it. And eventually we got so much into it that the boss, the guy who owned the pub, said to myself and Robin, if you guys want to take this as a little project and build up our whiskey list, build up our whiskey stocks in the back bar. And he said to us, you guys can tell me, say 4 or 5 single malts every week, and I'll order them in, and it's your guys' job to sell them. So learn a bit about the whiskies, get them out there. And we started a little whiskey club within a lot of the locals. It was quite an affluent area, so they wanted to build it up and get people drinking the whiskies more. So we thought this was amazing. We thought this was the best thing that could ever happen. We were 19. We didn't know anything about whiskey other than we liked drinking it and we liked getting drunk. So that was, we were 19. I think that's fairly standard when you're 19. And we ordered in like 4 or 5 a week. And within a year, we went from maybe 15 single malts to just under 200. And we obviously had to try all of them as they came in. And we were still, maybe just turning. yeah, I mean, if we've got to sell it, we have to be able to talk about it and talk about the flavors. So yeah, we were maybe just 20 years old, and we'd gone through almost 200 single malts, and we'd learned about them, and we didn't go into huge depth of them, but that was where I started to really love it. That's where it was something that, I don't know, it was the stories and the labels that got me. I enjoyed drinking it, and I enjoyed the experience of sitting down after a long shift, having a beer and a whiskey and a packet of crisps and relaxing and chatting to the other guys that I worked with. But reading the labels and occasionally looking at the website, it was all the backstory and the history that's what kind of started to spark my imagination. But yeah, that was really where it started from. It just kind of grew from there. I don't think I thought I would be doing this back then, but it kind of it sparked a love or a passion for talking about it. Yeah, it's kind of hard.
That's something you're doing. You've been talking about it as the Balvenie ambassador in Australia for how long now?
Just over 3 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. No slowing down. We had one question immediately off the bat. One question that came in from Cody Banks, who we both know over at Haynes & Co. Cody says, Ross, first question, why are you so good looking?
I would counteract that question with another question. Why are you so good looking, Corey? I feel like that's an easy way out of that one. I'm glad I thought of that.
So, and I'll take one more question whilst we're here as well on questions. And we should pour ourselves a dram as well, rather than just talking the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's pour a dram. What
What are you having?
I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any distillery, the Balvenie, in my green bottles. So I'm going for another distillery starting with B, but it's a 10.183 Velociraptor versus Xenomorph.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I mean, they all sound awesome. Yeah, I love when you read the society bottlings. They just all sound great. I found these.
Yeah, the welcome packs. Yeah.
The welcome pack, yeah. And I was having a little read of them, and I'm finding it very hard to choose between them because they all sound delicious. But I think I might. I'm going to go for a feast of fruits. That sounds pretty good.
Feast of fruits. What's the code on that one?
64.75.
That's going back a bit. That's about 30 casks to go with Distillery 64. That's very cool.
Oh, it smells incredible.
It's the only distillery code that rhymes with the distillery name, actually. There you go.
64.75. I'll work that one out later. Well, cheers, anyway. Cheers, Slanger.
Yeah, cheers. Good, Slanger. Yeah, absolutely. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. Crazy times that we're living in at the moment. Okay, so some of these questions that are coming in, Fiona Beasley asks, what was the standout that made you appreciate whiskey? 200 is a lot, but something had to keep you there. That's a really good question.
That's a good question. So there were a few standouts. There were favourites of mine at the very beginning, which I remember them being the standout ones, and they're still favourites of mine now. One of the first ones was Bunnahabhain. I just loved it straight away. Thanks. Straight away, it was just, I don't know, I just loved it. That the richness, the sweetness, everything about it. I think I was also quite taken with Islay, and when I learned about Islay, it was through Bunnahabhain, and I think I just thought it sounded amazing. I'd never been to Islay then, but it just seemed like this magical place. So that kind of got me into it.
It's also a cool name.
It's also what? Sorry.
It's also got a cool name, Bunnahabhain. It's like it's a cool
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah. I mean, I might be Scottish, but I had to work out how to say it as well at the start. I didn't know how to pronounce that. But the other one, and I say this hand on heart, completely honestly, when that first week that we started ordering them whiskies, we ordered them 4 or 5 of them, And within that, it was some of the kind of the usual suspects that you'd expect. And Bunna Haven was in there, but Balvenie Doublewood was in there too. And I'm so glad to have this story now working for Balvenie, because I didn't make this up, and this is how it happened. But we got the Balvenie Doublewood in, and it was both myself and Rob, and it was our favourite at the beginning. The first lot we brought in, we loved the Doublewood. We thought it was great. And although we would always try and switch it up and drink different things after each shift and try and work our way through everything, our staple, or one that we always came back to, if we had a long night and we didn't want to do the whole sit down and swirling and smelling, we wanted something that we knew we enjoyed, it came back to the Doublewood. It was always pint of Tennent's and a Doublewood. That was our standard. I don't know if anyone out there knows Tennent's very well, but it's an affordable Glasgow lager, I would describe it
as. Pint of Tennent's and a Doublewood.
Yeah.
So another question coming in here from Cody Banks again, who writes, "What is your preference of glass?" We'll come to that one in a second. And a question from Matt Whisker, who we also both know. Do you ever see yourself working with another brand other than the Balvenie? So preference of glass, and do you ever see yourself working with another brand other than the Balvenie?
These are good questions. I like it. Glassware, I tend to like the Glencairn. I do enjoy Glencairn, but while I'm at home, recently, I have a Waterford Crystal one that I really enjoy. So that's like the one I use for. It just feels good in the hand, and it's not so much for nosing and the appreciation part. It's about, I just want to sit down and enjoy a whiskey, get a bit of weight to it. But if I'm for tasting whiskey, I know that doesn't look like a glass, but the Denver and Liley glasses, I do really enjoy them, because I feel like it's in the middle. This is a pretty special release one, the Explorer. So it's got this beautiful leather pack that it comes in. It's good for just sticking in the bag. I like the Denver and Liley glass. For me, it's kind of somewhere in between. So the Glencairn is, for me, like assessing a whiskey. The Waterford one is one like just got it in my hand, it feels nice. I feel like this is in between, because it fits so nicely in the hand, but it's also great for getting all the right amount of the aromas and the flavors. So it depends on the occasion, but this, I suppose, the Denver and Liley kind of sits right in the middle for me, where it's just perfect fit. That's glasses.
Yeah, I did a stream on some glassware about a week ago, and I did another one about 3 months ago where I talked about different glassware and how the right time and occasion for different glassware, from Tasting Coppers to Glencairns to Denver and Lileys to Waterfords, and it's a broad world of great glassware out there, and you can experiment. As you can see, I'm on our little Society tulips tonight, which are great for whiskey nosing and tasting and appreciating.
Yeah,
whiskey.
they're great too.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's whatever you're in the preference for, what your mood is, where you are, who you're with, I think. Yeah.
I think one of the things I learned when I was did some work with Waterford for the last couple of years, and they make amazing crystal glasses. They're quite expensive. They are beautiful though, but their point when they're talking about these expensive glasses, most people can tend to keep them for a special occasion, but their main thing, and they keep saying, they're like, no, use your good glasses, because you buy them to get a good use out of them. It's the same with like your nice whiskies. You can keep it for a special occasion, or you can just really enjoy it right now. So I quite like that. I mean, use your good glasses. I quite like that.
No, I don't have any ornamental glassware that I don't use. I mean, all my glassware gets used just as I open all my whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way of doing it. Everyone does it differently, but I like to make my way through everything.
Cody says, I get the feel in the hand thing. Yeah, I think we both do. Yeah, it's, it's whichever glass feels right in the hand at the right time. James Bunton asks a question. He asks, James asks, what's your favorite sherry style?
Like of actual sherry wine?
Well, he's written it as S-T-I-L-E, but.
That's a good question. I mean, I like a Amontillado sherry. I've been drinking quite a bit of sherry. I went to Jerez in January, I went and visited our cooperages that we get our European oak, our sherry barrels from, and visited a couple of wineries and met the guys, met the coopers, met the guys who have run those companies for a while. It was such an amazing. I mean, I love Spain in general. I love the culture and spent a lot of time there as a kid. But for the style of sherry, I think it depends on the mood. But I like Amontillado. It's got like a little bit. It's got that dryness, got a little bit of sharpness to it, and then occasionally a little Pedro Jimenez after dinner. You can't go wrong with that. A nice little bit of syrupiness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of like, I love whiskies matured in ex Oloroso more than most other sherry types. I like them matured in ex-PX, of course, as well. And I've tasted a few whiskies matured in ex-Fino and ex-Amontillado, and I don't think Fino and Amontillado work particularly well with whiskey maturation. But that's. I mean, I don't think I'm alone in that opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. Did you mean the style of sherry itself, or sherry whiskey, like barrel that?
I'll have to come back to him on that one. On that one. But Denver says, I believe that Ross will work for me in the future. Yeah, cool.
I'm all sitting here. Another one here too. See?
The Traveller. Yeah.
Traveller.
Very cool.
Yeah, I enjoy that one. I enjoy the dents in this one. A little story in each dent.
Very cool. Now, jumping into the next question. So again, one that I'm often asked, and I'm sure you are as well, and I'm sure our members would like to know about. What are your tips for aspiring ambassadors in the whiskey trade? Because if there was a question that I was asked the other night by a member, and I've been asked it at almost every tasting I've ever done. It was, how do I become a whiskey ambassador, or how do I get into the whiskey industry? More aptly about becoming a whiskey ambassador. What would be your tip for someone who is aspiring to become a whiskey ambassador, or someone who works in the whiskey trade?
Yeah, it's quite a hard one to answer, I think, because I've had the same question quite often. It's a hard one to answer because I don't think there's any specific route to take to become a whiskey ambassador. I think there are routes that are beneficial and things that you can do beforehand. I think what it comes down to is being good at two things. Is passion and communication. That's the two things I think are the most important, probably. And there's lots of other parts that come into it, but you have to love what you do. You can't do it without loving it. Whether you're doing it for a year or you're doing it for 20 years, you need that passion, you need that love. And also you have to be able to communicate with people. You have to be able to get your ideas across, and then the two of them together, you have to be able to communicate passion. You want people to feel what you're saying. And I don't know if it's not always something. I suppose you can learn that, but it comes from a real place. Like if you genuinely love it, then you can tell when someone loves something when they're talking about it. I think that's the main thing that you need. I think everything else you can learn. But I think the main thing for getting a job as a whiskey ambassador is waiting for someone else to leave the job first. That's the hardest part, because we don't want to leave this job.
Do you feel like you've got a bit of a cross on your back?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody needs to get out of the way before you can get in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. A question from James Hart. He asks, does Australia get many special releases from Balvenie? We don't really see too many apart from core range.
There's quite. So the core range being the 12 double wood, the Caribbean cask, the 17 double wood, and the 21 port wood. Outside of that, in Australia, we've got the new Stories range. So these are the whiskies that they're all brand new, but they're based around the story behind the whiskey and how it came around, and who made it. And it's about the characters. A lot of it, we've just realised that the people at our distillery are so important, and there's some real characters in there. I mean, there's some really interesting people. So these whiskies were built around the story behind them, and the whiskies are great themselves, obviously. But we have the Stories range. We have the 12, which is a sweet toast of American oak, which is essentially Kelsey McKechnie, who is our new apprentice to David Stewart. So it's really her first whiskey that she's created through her ideas. It's finished in specially slowly toasted virgin American oak barrels. Bit of a mouthful. Slowly toasted virgin American oak barrels. Yeah, amazing whiskey. We've got the 14, which is the week of peat, which is a lightly peated Balvenie using Highland peat. With the 26 day of dark barley, which is that one here. You can see actually the artwork in these ones. So these are, the 26 is very much a special edition. This was made with 100% roasted barley back in 1992. So quite unique for anyone to be using roasted barley or that much roasted barley at that time. So that's all single barrel. So there's a few other ones too. I mean, we've got a single barrel range and a few other things. But I mean, there's actually a few out there. It's just finding them.
Now there was a couple of questions that came in which came in just before we started the stream, and we'll get to those in a moment as well, which is great from members. Reese Burks asks, how much Balvenie does SMWS do? And the answer is zippity do, nothing. But there's good historical context to that, which is worth remarking on. Ross, do you want to add anything to that?
I'd rather hear your part of it first, actually, or I can go first if you want. But you used to have some from us, didn't you?
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Maybe the reason why it's not there anymore, or what we?
Well, we don't see really. I mean, it's not just a society thing. We just don't see any really independent bottlings of the Balvenie at all. And I think there was a catalyst that set that off. And I'm not going to name names or bottlers, but there was something that set that off, of course.
So in the mid '80s, David Stewart is our malt master. He essentially, with the team there, our whiskey stocks team, they decided for all the whiskey that we were selling to other people or swapping, as we do a lot in the industry, we would teaspoon it. So we'd put 1% or a cup or a teaspoon or whatever, any amount, put a little bit of Glenfiddich into the Balvenie. So little amount that it's not really going to change the flavour too much. But you can't call it single malt anymore, and you can't call it Balvenie. And vice versa, we did the same with Glenfiddich. And the reason that was really done to protect, it was done to protect the brand name. And I know this could cause a bit of uproar. I mean, especially within independent bottling, it seems unfair. But the reason behind it then was, if someone tries a Balvenie that is bottled by someone else whenever they think it's right, and it might taste a little bit different, and this is the beautiful thing about independent bottles, is they don't necessarily taste like the distillery style that is exactly known from that place. That's the beauty of it. But from the distillery point of view, if someone tastes, say, or they have a 21-year-old Balvenie and it's quite expensive and it's an independent bottle, if they have that and they don't enjoy it and it's not to their flavour, then they think, oh, I had that Balvenie once, I won't bother having that again. And then they don't bother to, explore into the Balvenie range when they see the distillery style, the character. That was kind of where it came about, why we started teaspooning. I think we were the first lot to start doing teaspooning, followed closely by a few others. But that's really where
you were certainly one of the first. Yeah, and there was a independent bottler that is not the society that I heard this grand story about how they bought some casks of Glenfiddich and they bottled them as a supermarket malt somewhere in Europe. And that was sort of how it came about, as like and I think the brand manager for Glenfiddich at the time, we're talking 1980s, wasn't too impressed with the fact that it had been turned into this supermarket malt, which was meant to be a premium product. And so it was sort of like it all got sold off to a supermarket in Europe, like an Aldi or a Lidl or something. And that was sort of the basis of it. I've heard that story twice now, two versions of the same story over the years.
Yeah, okay. I hadn't heard that. I didn't know that. I mean, I could check up on that, definitely.
It's ancient history now. It's very cool, but it's so. But if I was to reiterate something that David Stewart said at the SMWS Balvenie tasting that we did in 2017, was that he said that they're not really selling casks to the society at the moment, but his answer was never say never, which is always cool. Yeah. That's always nice to know. It's a bit of an open end there. I'll grab some other questions.
Maybe you told me that. Yeah, that's good. I would love to see it. I'd love to see some in society. I mean, I like working with you guys. It'd make it a lot easier if we were giving you whiskey as well.
Yeah. a question from Denver asks, is the peated Balvenie in Australia named Peat Week or Isla Cask finished, or are they different things?
There's a few of those things. So the Isla cask and the peated cask were old limited release 17-year-olds. The Isla cask was finished in Lafroig barrels. And not long after we released that, the SWA changed the rules so that you can't name any other region on your label. So even although we weren't saying it's from Isla, we were saying it's an Isla barrel, we couldn't put that on there. So we decided to change it around a little bit, and we did a peated cask, and we ended up using peated Balvenie barrels for that one. So that was when we just started doing peated Balvenie. Then a couple of years ago, we released one that was called Peat Week, which was a single barrel release.
I remember that.
And it was all based around, we have 1 week a year where we do a peated run. So all the barley in our malting floor goes through the kiln and it's all peated. 2 years after that, the third year is when we released it. It's called the Week of Peat. I know maybe like slight difference in the names, maybe a little bit confusing, but this was changing it into being part of the Stories range. So going from Peat Week to the Week of Peat. The main change in the whiskey itself was that we changed it from being single barrel to being a marriage of first fill American oak. And the reason behind that was that we kind of thought, if you're having a peated Balvenie, there's something that's enough different in there anyway. You're not used to it being a peated Balvenie. So having single cask meant that each time you got it, it was going to be slightly different. So we thought we'd just reduce the variables a little bit so that people could get used to a peated Balvenie by doing a marriage of casks. And I actually think it's much better. I prefer the marriage. I think it's got a nice bit of sweetness to it. But yes, good whiskey. There's a few of them.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go back into our main questions for a moment here, and I'll just bring up the next one. So, yeah, I was wondering if you could tell us a truly inspiring whiskey moment in your career that you'd like to remark on. Something that's happened, I think, maybe even in the last 3 years as ambassador for the Balvenie that you'd like to remark on. That something, a real sort of whiskey epiphany moment for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned this earlier that I thought of a few things, and there has been a few kind of inspiring moments, but probably the most inspiring, or one that really stuck with me, really kind of hit me when it happened, was last year in Isla. We were there for the Feshiel Festival, and I think it was. I don't think we'd met yet. I think, we had met obviously, but I don't think I'd seen you on Isla that time. And it was, you'll remember the weather was like that week. It was the same as any other week in Isla.
You and I bumped into each other on the rainiest day at Lagavulin.
I was at Lagavulin, mate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the reason I ended up on Isla was a whole run of events. Of me, moving to the US, and then ended up in London, and ended up with 3 weeks to spare, and just went on a road trip. And I had no idea where I was going. I hadn't planned to be in Isla. I hadn't planned to go to the Feshiel. I just ended up spoke to a mate of mine, Simon Smith, and I said, "I'm going to Edinburgh. Do you want to catch up for a beer?" And he said, "I'd love to, but I'm actually going to Isla. But I've got a spare spot in the tent if you want." So I ended up jumped in the car with him, got on the ferry over there, and we actually borrowed a tent from the pub in Inverary. So we borrowed the tent from the bartender there and took it across with us. So we'd never seen the tent before. We got there, we set up the tent in the pitch black. We'd had a couple of whiskies before we set up the tent just to relax and get settled in. We set up the tent in pitch black. We were amazed that we got it up, and then went straight to the pub. And we came back from the pub, and it was still, the rain was insane. The wind was howling. But we jumped into the tent, and it seemed fine. It seemed to be holding up. But the next morning we got up, and after, not the greatest of sleeps with the wind howling, and the tent went from being like that shape to being like that shape, because the wind was going in this way, and the whole tent was basically that shape. And we got up in the morning, went and brushed our teeth, and came back, and I was looking at the tent, and I was like, that puddle of water in there is not looking great. In any tent, a puddle of water for any reason is not a good thing. But this looked like it'd been leaking in through somewhere. I said to Simon, I was like, "This doesn't look great for us." And we're like, "Well, we'll see what happens. We'll dry that up. We'll get a towel, and if it stops raining, we might be okay. But we'll get down to Lagavulin now. So we went down to Lagavulin. We've got our jackets on. We've got those poncho things on. Like insane rain. Like it was just incredible. And we were there for a while. We were having a few Lagavulin 16s, a few smoky cokies, and just having quite a nice time. Bumped into yourself. We're having a chat. Eventually, I said to Simon, I was like, I think that this rain's keeping up. We should go back and check on the tent, because if we go back tonight and it's done, then we don't have anywhere to go. If we go back mid-afternoon and find out it's done, at least we can try and work out something else. So we decided, okay, right, we'll go back to the tent and we'll check. This is maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We started heading back to the tent, and we stopped in at the pub first. We had a couple of pints at the pub.
Hey, of course, you have to stop.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely an emergency to get to the tent, but not enough for an emergency. They were didn't stop 2 pints of Guinness to watch the Old Firm, the Rangers and Celtic game was on. So we stopped and watched that. Anyway, but digress a little bit. So we go back to the tent, and I was right. It was done. Like, it was completely soaked through. Our stuff was in the only dry part in the middle, and we thought, all right, it's done. Like, we can't sleep in this. So we took down the tent and put it in the bin. And we text the guy at the bar, and we're like, mate, we've just put your tent in the bin. He was like, why did you put it in the bin? Bring it back. Like, well, it's got holes in it, mate. You don't need it anymore. It's done. So we did that, and then as some you might know, I mean, getting accommodation on Isla during Fair Shield is incredibly hard. People book it years in advance. Yeah. I mean, I think you had some quite nice accommodation, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a society had a share house, like it was like a cottage, they called it, but it was far from being a traditional cottage. It was a fully renovated, lovely cottage. We managed to get all of our it even had a washer, a dryer, so we could do all our clothes in it. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was a lovely place, but they had to book that, I think, 9 or 10 months ahead. Yeah,
and it's crazy trying to get accommodation. And so we were now in this situation of having nowhere to sleep. And the only thing at the time, I thought, who can I phone and ask if they can help out? So I phoned Bill Lark, and I knew he was there. I was going to catch up with him at some point, and I phoned Bill, and I was like, Bill, I hate to do this, but we have got nowhere to stay. Like, I knew you had an Airbnb somewhere. So, like, could we sleep on your floor or something? And we've got a sleeping bag each, and we'll just come and sleep on the floor. And Bill was like, oh, don't worry about that. We've actually got a spare room with 2 beds. Like, come on down here and you can stay with us. Come in and get a heat, and you can stay in the spare room here. Someone had pulled out of the trip with them. So we ended up, we're like, how lucky is that? The first person we phoned Bill, and he says, come on down here. And before I hung up, I said to him, I was like, Bill, I'll just get some food on the way down. We'll get some dinner, and then we'll come down. And he's like, Ross, don't bother with that. Just get yourself down here. We'll cook you dinner, and you can relax. And I thought, how good is Bill? I mean, yeah, how good is he in general? But it was so good of him to do that. So we got down there. They had made a seafood risotto. As Mr. Nick, who was there as well. So he'd made a seafood risotto. We sat down in the living room, and we were sitting there with Tim Duckett and the family, and Bill and Mr. Nick. And we're sitting there with about 6 different bottles of Fair Shield bottlings, different things. We get cups of tea going round. We get a couple of plates of biscuits. And then I was like, this is even real. How did this just happen? I'm sitting with all the people from Australia and Isla, where I had no idea I was going to be. And then the doorbell goes a minute later, and I'm just eating my biscuits and enjoying my tea and my whiskey. And Dan Woolley walks in as well. Dan Woolley and Billy walk in the room. So they come in and sit down as well.
He was getting married on Isla that weekend,
He had just been married that week, yeah. So he came in and sat down, and I was just kind of blown away by so many things. I was sitting there with a cup of tea and a biscuit with these incredible whiskies that we'll never see again, and just enjoying a chat with them, heating up. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is why it was inspiring for me and why it was so memorable. Is that firstly, I had no idea I was going to be there. It wasn't a planned trip. I didn't know I was going to go there. We'd been through this ordeal with the rain and the tent and didn't know where we were going. We landed on our feet, and ended up with some of the most hospitable people and some legendary people of the whiskey industry, and all from Australia. And I've ended up on the other side of the world, sitting in the same room as all these people from Australia, drinking whiskey in this little Scottish living room. And I just had to take it all in for a moment. One of those times where you just have to stop and think and just look around and be like, this is an amazing thing to be able to do. It's amazing to have this job, and the things that whiskey does, the things that people that it brings together, and the experiences that it makes happen. It blew me away. It was such a amazing little experience on Isla that day. Tea, whiskey, and biscuits.
Yeah, that is incredible, and that's what it's about. It's always that those epiphanies of like have a sense of community that I think the Australian whiskey industry does very well of shared experiences. But if we can share those experiences online at the moment instead of in person because of all the coronavirus stuff, then we do what we can. A popular comment here from Steve Oates, who says, "You have not lived until you've camped on Isla during Feish and had your tent destroyed."
Yes, I agree. So I can say I've lived now. I've done that.
And Denver says, yes, the Oz whiskey family is incredible. And it's one that I'm hugely proud to be a part of, and you as well. It's such a supportive community and such a friendly group of people that are all involved in whiskey, and all of our members, of course, as well.
It really is quite special.
Now, there was a comment earlier from Robert Akers who writes, will we see you at Champs when it can happen, Ross? I believe so, because the thing I meant to mention before, and Ross is nodding right now, the thing I mentioned before is that William Grant and Sons have had a long history with the SMWS when it comes to being a part of the championships. We're hoping the Champs will return as soon as it is viable to do so. We're probably looking realistically early next year, but we'll see how we go with everything on the timing of everything. But Ross, tell us more.
I loved it last time. I had a great time. That was the first one I'd been to. But I think we've been a sponsor for quite a few years now. So as soon as we can have it on,
it's over 10.
Really? Wow. Yeah. It's such a. I think when we spoke about it earlier on in the year, I think at the time I thought, well, there's no way we're not going to be part of this. I really love it. It's such a great experience. I had a great time at it last time. It's such a good thing. It's so much fun, and it's like good balance of. I don't know if it's seriousness and fun, but everyone likes getting in there and getting stuck into the whiskies, and it's great to see it. I love it, and again, there's so much passion in that room for whiskey. So I'll be there. We'll all be there.
One of my favorite moments from the 2018 Champs that the Balvenie was so integral to was the winner was Brooke Heyman, and she's the co-founder of Whiskey and Almond, and she flew up from Melbourne to compete in the Champs. And as I was walking around the tables picking up the answer forms off people, she handed me hers, and she said verbatim, "Don't look at it, all the answers are wrong." And she ended up having the most answers correct. There's such an element of luck and such an element of skill involved in it, and it's that perfect balance between the two. But the Champs will return, I promise.
I think my favorite bit from the Champs. My favorite bit from the Champs was when we didn't know who we were giving one of the whiskies to for one of the prizes. It was Matt Whisker, who was here a second ago.
Who's watching that now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so funny. It's so funny. Can't get everything perfect, but I thought that was great fun.
A couple of comments here. Denver Kramer and Tim Mayer both say, is Whiskey and Dreams going ahead, and is SMWS / and the Balvenie part of it this year? We certainly were. We certainly are. If it still goes ahead, we don't know at the moment. I think it's still sort of like just, tenterhooks working out what's going on, but they'll probably announce that. And Tim writes, I hope Whiskey and Dreams goes ahead and then Champs. So do we, mate. And a question from Ron Lakers asks, what Balvenie pairs best with tea and biscuits?
Depends on the type of tea and biscuits, but if you're having like a just a good chocolate digestive and a cup of Scottish blend, my favourite tea, obviously. I'd probably go with the 15 single barrel, the sherry cask. That'd probably be, that'd be the one I'd choose. Good with a chocolate biscuit. Good quick.
And Tim also asks, how did Ross end up living in Sydney? Thought he was moving to Melbourne. Ooh.
I was going to move to Melbourne, and then I decided not to. That's a short answer. I think.
And
I love Melbourne. I wanted to live there for so long, and then just when it came to roughly the time where I was making a decision on it, before all this happened, there was just something really special in Sydney. I think over the last year before all this, there was something really cool happening in Sydney with the bar scene, and I wanted to be closer to that. And I'm still in Melbourne. Well, I was almost every month, but I just decided that there was something felt right in Sydney at the time. So I thought, well, I'll stay here and hang out for a while. I'm not in a rush. I'll get to Melbourne eventually. But yeah, that was why I changed my mind. I was going to be moving down there.
I think I'm much in the same boat as you. I'm in Melbourne at least every month, if not sometimes twice a month for SMWS.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it's one of those things that you can live in Sydney, you can live in Melbourne. There's a great scene for whiskey in both. But there is some special stuff happening in Sydney. Of course, we were seeing it happen before all this took over. And Ross, what is the dram you've just poured? Asks Melinda.
The next SMWS one, I had a Feast of Fruits. Now it is foamy strawberries in a cigar box, which is 121.66.
121.66. 121. Oh, okay. Jogging my memory here on all the codes.
Yeah. It rhymes with the distillery. No, it doesn't. I have no idea what it is. I don't even know.
That only works for a distillery 64. Okay. Well, yeah. No, I know 121, of course. Yes. A lovely island distillery, that one. A proper island distillery is a good word for it. Starts with A. There you go. It's on the Isle of Arran. The distillery's somewhere on the Isle of Arran. I couldn't tell you which distillery it is, though.
Yeah, okay. That narrows it down a little bit.
There you go. So, yeah, you're on a 121. I'm still on the 10.183. But a Slangeva.
Slangeva. Sorry, I was too quick off the mark there. I was desperate to taste it.
We're gonna. We've taken some great questions. We've had some great chat tonight. I'll leave it there for now, and I really want to take just a moment now to thank Ross Blainey. If you've just tuned in, you've been watching Ross Blainey and myself, Matt Bailey, have a chat. Bring some light entertainment and some bit of an interview to you tonight for our daily live stream that we do every single day, which is always very fun. It's at 7 p.m. every single day, and a great chance for everyone to catch up and get a few questions in. Big thanks to Ross tonight for taking the time to chat with us. Thank you again, Ross.
No, thank you very much for having me on. I mean, it's nice just to sit and have a chat. I think especially when it's a bit unusually, everything's a bit unusual at the moment, but maybe we can sit down and have a whiskey and still have a chat, and hopefully everyone tuning in enjoyed it. But yeah, it's just nice to be able to do this. But yeah, thank you very much for having me.
No, I really appreciate it. It's like I said, there's a long relationship that both you and I have known each other for a while, and also between William Grant and Sons and the SMWS. So it's always great to catch up and just chew the fat and have a bit of fun. So again, really appreciate it. Thanks to all the members, by the way, for all the great questions that came through. And yes, the support for the champs is overwhelming, and we've even got some surprises in store, which we haven't announced yet, but we're not going to announce just yet because it's all in limbo at the moment. Thank you again, Ross, and we'll catch up soon, everyone, and cheers for now.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks for having me. I'll speak to you soon.